money to his deal with the Heat. Miami signed the All-Star guard to a 4-year, $184 million extension, according to his agent. That keeps him under contract through the 2025-2026 season and makes it 7 years, $287 million guaranteed for him with the Heat. But plenty for both sides to be happy about. Butler coming off arguably his best season as a pro. He set career highs in field goals and true shooting percentage while averaging nearly 7 rebounds and 7 assists per game. The 5-time All-Star also added 4 triple-doubles, which were tied with LeBron James for the most in a single season in Heat franchise history. It's not all good news for Miami today, though. According to a report from our Ramona Shelburne and Adrian Wojnarowski, the NBA is investigating possible tampering violations involving 2 free agency sign and trade deals, one between Toronto and Miami for Kyle Lowry, as well as a deal between New Orleans and Chicago for Lonzo Ball. The NBA's probe will examine illegal contact among teams and players ahead of the opening of free agency.
Kelsey, the same way the Dream Team is inarguably the best in U.S. Olympic history, Kevin Durant is now the unrivaled greatest individual player ever for Team USA. KD pumped in 29 points, leading the U.S. to a gold medal game win over France. Carmelo Anthony is the only 3-time men's gold medalist. It wasn't easy. It was never a gimme at any point. But the mission for gold is accomplished. Brian Windhorst with more from Tokyo.
You know, just about all of Kevin Durant's teammates during the Olympics said that he was indeed the best player in the world, and certainly it felt like it here in Tokyo. It's such a nuanced conversation. You go look what Giannis Antetokounmpo did in the finals this year. You look at what LeBron did last year. But I think I can say this with confidence. Kevin Durant is the best Olympic player in the world right now because his shooting is so brilliant and it's so hard to defend in an Olympic setting where it's aimed at keeping the big men in front of the rim. That's so valuable. And
completing a sign and trade, bringing Kyle Lowry from the Raptors, 2019 champion, expect to snag a 3-year deal. Then the Heat turned towards one of their own, working on a max extension with Jimmy Butler. Have to have him in the fold. The 31-year-old led the Heat to the 2020 NBA Finals, posted career highs last season in field goal percentage, assists, and led the NBA in steals. And also the Heat took care of sharpshooter Duncan Robinson, agreeing to a 5-year, $90 million deal. Get this, that's the largest ticket by any undrafted player in league history. Robinson joined Steph Curry. Joining Steph Curry and Klay Thompson as the only players with multiple seasons of 250 made threes while shooting over 40%. And then the late word, Tim Bontemps is confirming P.J. Tucker signs a 2-year, like $15 million deal. So you look at how the Heat project for next season. Let's just say they project really well. Wow. A star-studded lineup they can throw out on the court now. NBA front office insider Bobby Marks joining us now, and Pat Riley had himself a day, huh?
Man, you got to bring out the big calculator for this.
Wow, and we have something along those lines here, but what a day for Riley and the Heat. Maybe completely transforming their roster now. Obviously, took care of some of their own. But you tell me, where do you want to start here, and how much better are the Heat today than they were yesterday?
Yeah, well, I'll start with it. They're a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. I'm putting them up there with Brooklyn. I'm putting them up with Milwaukee, ahead of Philadelphia. I think these moves solidify that, especially with Kyle Lowry. I think the gymnastics as far as how they were able to do everything, it started yesterday with Goran Dragic exercising his $19.4 million option. That allowed them to stay over the salary cap. They didn't go under the cap. They could have signed Lowry outright if they wanted to. They didn't do that. And when you take a player out like, Dragic and probably Precious Achiuwa, and then you add Kyle, into that mix, his number is going to be a little bit higher than that 25, right around 27. That keeps you in the game here. What they were able to do, though, is Duncan Robinson. You had his bird right, so now you can exceed the salary cap to bring him back right around $16 million, and you keep on adding. and they'll be able to stay under the luxury tax, under the hard cap. When you look at here, they're under. And then, you look at a player like, we'll see where PJ Tucker is down here. I think we might even have him in the 4s. Yeah, we got him in the 4s. And then you had PJ Tucker, because what happened is that you still had here's PJ, you still had your mid-level exception. So you had your $9.5 million mid-level exception. PJ gets about $7 million of that. And then when you slide him in there, you're still under the luxury tax. And
How's that possible?
And you can fill out the rest of your roster with minimum guys. You're probably going to lose Kendrick Nunn, who's a restricted free agent. But, yeah, you basically have turned over your roster, 2 years after they made the Jimmy Butler deal, something into nothing, and now this is a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. That is amazing how quickly you can transform. It's also amazing how you can go the other way. Toronto was 2 years ago, right?
Yep.
The Raptors are unrecognizable now from that championship club. What happens if I tap on this Kyle Lowry? Like the whole thing explodes?
No, not yet.
All right. But how quickly it can change in the NBA, right?
It can turn quickly, and they were able to. Hey, you get swept by Milwaukee last year in the first round. Like, change is coming here.
So obviously, look like the Phoenix Suns, off their NBA Finals appearance. I mean, they're right there in the mix. You feel good about that. I'd be curious, what they would look like without Chris Paul. But that's a nightmare that they don't have to worry about anymore. But Paul is back in the fold. What's that mean for them?
Yeah, I mean, when he opted out of that $44 million contract, the likelihood, someone asked me, what's the percentage? I said 99.9.
Right.
When you don't leave $44 million on the table to go kind of test free agency, and Paul comes back on a 4-year deal, $120 million. He added length to that. What he was able to do is drop that $44 million number down to around 30. You can go out and re-sign Cameron Payne, who's a free agent, and still go under the luxury tax. Now the priority is your rookie extensions. DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges. Those are contracts for next year, but you can extend them now. But priority one was getting Chris Paul in the fold, and they accomplished that.
Bobby, I'm looking around the league today, and I'm seeing, my eyeballs are blowing out with these incredible numbers for guys who are good players or bench players, but just incredible dollars being thrown around the league.
There were 3 players. Devontae Graham, $47 million. Norman Powell, $90 million. And then, as you said, Duncan Robinson, $90 million. 2 players were drafted in the second round. Robinson went undrafted. Life-changing money.
And none of those guys you mentioned are household names. Look, you pay the big stars, I get it. But the amount of dollars being thrown out there, as you see some of the free agent re-signings, Larry Bird rights. I wonder how many kids know what the Larry Bird rights are, right? Probably not too many. We don't have the time to dig into that. But I think the bottom line here is you have the Miami Heat in the top 3 now in the East based on today's event.
I do, and we'll see with Brooklyn. Brooklyn's got some work to do. When you lose Jeff Green to go to Denver in a free agent signing, they brought back Blake Griffin. We'll see what happens with Bruce Brown. Spencer Dinwiddie's still out there. A name, right. Can they bring him back, maybe use him in a sign and trade? But the teams up top, Milwaukee loses.
And you just keep adding to guys who could come into the game and they could actually run your game plan. I thought that was Lauren Markkinen. They have talent in different areas now. So what's now makes them, you have a game plan. A guy like, I think, who's going to benefit the most is guys like Markkinen, who were really thought upon to average 18 points. But when they have a game plan for them, I think he's like a 12-point scorer. Mm-hmm. But when you don't have a game plan to stop him, I think he could score 17, 18 points in a night because it's going to be on Levine. It's going to be on DeRozan, even Kobe White. It's going to be on how do you stop these guys from scoring. And now I think guys like him will flourish having that much talent around them.
It's an interesting point. Yeah, they do. They have a lot of players in Chicago. We'll see how good they are. And then let's talk about your hometown team, and that would be the Knicks. I love watching you on TNT because the accent is so familiar to me. It makes me feel so good. And hearing you talk about the Knicks. So they add Evan Fournier. They re-up, if you will, give a whole bunch of money to Julius Randle, who earned it last year, and now they're on the verge of bringing in another New York point guard in Kemba Walker. How good are the Knicks going to be?
Well, I think the piece with Kemba Walker, I think, changes the dynamic somewhat. Because I really thought before free agency, I was like, Knicks are just close to being really good, and they're close to being really bad. Because, most of their players last year that really were key contributors were Derrick Rose, Scott Gibson. But those guys are on the latter part of their career. And so if you couldn't sign some younger free agents, Fournier, Kemba, to kind of come in, like, have done it in the league or can do it in the league, you would have been just as close to being bad next year and the year after. So really, I think keeps them, solidifies them in a playoff position. I don't know if it puts them anywhere to the top of the Eastern Conference,